Hi everybody and welcome back to the channel. My name's Nicole and this is Dusty Book Sniffers, and today we are here for my Read Around the World challenge. Today we are talking about Sandcastle Girls by Chris Bojalian, and it is covering the country Armenia. So let's get started. Good morning or good evening everybody, and welcome back to the channel. Thank you for taking some time out of your day and spending it with me while I prattle on about the books that I have read. Today, as I said in the intro, we are talking about Sandcastle Girls. It is by Chris Bojalian and it is covering the country Armenia. And alright, so Armenia has been a little bit of a problematic country. It has really put a stop in my Read Around the World challenge, but I am rectifying it this month. I am trying to finish off all the A's, and so I'm here today to talk about Sandcastle Girls. This book was originally published in 2012 and it's got 299 pages. So it's not an overly large book, and because I've had some trouble with Armenia, like I did have a book called Road to Home, and I just didn't gel with the writing in the book, and the story was quite slow. The pace was very slow, and I was really struggling with it. And that was a memoir, and it was the son telling the story of his mother's journey through 1915 through what the Turkish government did to the Armenian people that were in Turkey. So it is classed as the Armenian genocide of 1915, and basically the Turkish government took it upon themselves to eradicate the Armenian people out of their country, and just didn't want them there. And I believe, and I haven't done a great deal of research on why, but I believe it was to do with the fact religion was the main focus on that. So I'm just looking at my notes here. It is, as I said, it is a historical fiction. It is a dual timeline. Now I do love a dual timeline. Yes, I grant you that some of them aren't that crash hot, but this one was pretty good. I actually thoroughly enjoyed this, and the present day timeline really did set the scene for the 1915 timeline. Okay, so we are following the story of Elizabeth Encott, and she has just done a crash course in nursing, and she has landed in Aleppo in Syria, and her father is there along with another gentleman that are trying to help the Armenian people by supplying food and trying to save as many people as they can. She has landed there because there's some scandal that has gone on back in Boston, and she refused to marry someone, and so she's ended up with her father. Elizabeth is a quite outspoken, not outspoken as such, but she's a very strong character, and she says what's on her mind, and she does as she pleases in some cases, hence the scandal back in Boston. So when she arrives, it is 1915, and as she arrives, she's quite confronted with the heat and everything like that, and the fact that these women and children are being marched into Aleppo. They're naked and they're bare feet, and they're quite distraught, as one would be. They're very sunburnt, they're very dirty, and so that she's confronted with this quite early on in the book. And so at the same time, there is a couple of other characters come into it, two German soldiers and an Armenian soldier, and she's quite taken with the Armenian soldier as he is with her. And the German soldiers are actually illegally documenting all of the people that come through Aleppo. And there's a whole storyline that plays out with that as well. I don't want to go into too much detail because it'll actually be a spoiler. It's hard to talk about that section without spoiling it, and I don't want to, because I'm recommending, if you like historical fiction dual timeline, this is definitely a great book to read. So that is the first timeline in 1915. It is in the First World War, for those that don't know the timelines. And it does cover quite a number of different things that are happening in that time. Then we've also got the present day timeline, and it is following the story of Laura Petostrian, and she is a novelist in suburban New York, and she's never really been concerned with her heritage or anything like that. But one day she gets a phone call from a friend that said they've seen her grandmother in a article, and she was talking about the opening of the Boston Museum, which she was promoting something. It was claiming to have seen a newspaper photo of a grandmother promoting an exhibit, an Armenian exhibit in the Boston Museum. And so that takes Laura on a journey learning about her grandparents and how they fell in love, how they met, how they fell in love, and what happened in Armenia and her heritage and stuff like that. So and she's also reveals a secret that is a very heart-wrenching secret. And so it was actually, I was quite shocked by it, actually, to be honest. I'm not going to go too much detail, but it does, the 1915 timeline for me was the most interesting, because it was talking about the Armenian genocide that the Turkish government facilitated. And I did like the bits and pieces that were brought in from the current timeline, because it just rounded it out quite nicely. We know that early on in the book that I can't remember his name. I'm so sorry. I think it was Armin. I can't remember what his name was, so I'm not going to say. But anyway, the Armenian soldier that Elizabeth was taken with, he had lost his wife and his child when they met. He'd just lost them, and he was on a search to find out what had happened to them and stuff like that. And it also touches on his story, on the things that he's had to do to survive, to get where he is, and how he gets back to Elizabeth as well. So we touch a little bit on the Anzacs in Gallipoli and the fire that they come under, and all that sort of stuff. There's a little bit of graphic stuff happening there as well, but it was definitely needed to drive the point home and all that sort of stuff. And it follows his journey where he ends up in Egypt and then back in Aleppo and all that sort of stuff. I have given it a 3-star rating. I don't think it's a 4-star read. It's more of a 3.5 star. It was a really good book and I thoroughly enjoyed it. It was a quick read. And I know it's not about Armenia, or like it's not a non-fiction book or anything like that, or a translated work, but I was really struggling to find something that I was going to be interested in. Now, in saying that though, I have read this book and now I think I might be able to pick up that other book. I would actually show it to you, but it's been packed and it's been moved, so I've got to grab it back off my daughter. I put it in her room and yeah, I don't actually have it. So basically, it's made me now want to go and learn more about that time, because I actually was not aware of it. And I don't think a lot of people may be aware of this genocide that happened in 1915 to the Armenian people. I've sat there and thought about it, and I cannot remember anybody ever at school or out of school talking about that. So now I'm pretty keen to go and learn a little bit more about it. And as I said, I think now that I know a little bit more behind it, because he has actually put a lot of facts in there as well. And like all the characters are fictional and all that sort of stuff. It is definitely historical fiction, but there are some factual bits and pieces in there as well. So it's given me that push, so to speak, to go and read that other book. So I think I might appreciate that a little bit more. If I do read it, and I read it soon, I will actually do a Armenia 2.0 or something like that for the Read Around the World Challenge. And there probably are some countries that I'm going to want to come back to, especially if I haven't found anything to read, because I really would like to do translated stories. They can be fiction or they can be non-fiction. I prefer fiction, but anyway, it is what it is. But that is it from me today. Don't forget to give us a thumbs up. Also hit that subscribe button, the little bell icon beside it, and that way you're not going to miss out on any future posts. And as always, keep turning those pages, and I will see you in the next video. Bye for now.